Hello everybody, it's the Historical Gamer once again, and today we're returning to Strategic Command World War II, World at War. I think this is part 54 of our series, if not, I mean, it's very high up there. We've been at it for a while. And we're playing as the Axis powers during World War II, trying to win the war. The Japanese have driven deep into the heart of China and are driving on the final Chinese capital at Urumqi. The Chinese army lost 2 units here to the south of Guizhou last turn. We've interposed ourselves between them and Guizhou. The real challenge is whether we can maintain our supply lines on our drive on Urumqi, or whether we have to pause and wait a couple of more weeks or a few more months before we can reduce the city. For the moment, however, we are driving on the city, and we hope to maybe even approach it next turn. If not next turn, then probably 2 turns from now. In the south of China, we've also closed off a pocket that the Allies had sort of created near Nanning or north of Hanoi. A Chinese army was destroyed there, and the British have been pushed back toward Kunming. They do have some armored units there and quite a bit of supply, so it's unlikely we'll be able to push them out anytime soon because it is very high-quality tanks, but we'll see. In Burma, we've taken Burma as the Japanese, and now we're just kind of trying to mop up some units here and reduce the Allies further, as they sort of have this very slender pocket here in the Burmese theater. In the Pacific, the American Navy's been ravaged and badly beaten, but there are still many naval vessels left. We've spotted 2 American naval units, a battleship and a destroyer here south of New Guinea, and we've reconsolidated our fleet, as battered as it is, to prepare to receive whatever the Americans have coming. The Americans have 21 naval vessels. That's down from a strength of over 35 just a few turns ago, to give you a sense of the destruction of their navy. But that's still 19 naval vessels, or 21 naval vessels, which is greater than the Japanese by a considerable margin, by more than 50%. In addition to that, the British have 22 naval vessels, and the Japanese are really the only power on our side with any meaningful naval units. The Germans have 2. Of which there is a submarine here in the Pacific, sort of augmenting the Japanese fleet, and then 1 in Europe. Meanwhile, on the Russian front, the Japanese have declared war on Russia and have surrounded Vladivostok, and we hope that we can take that next turn. That's a national morale center, so that would really hurt the Russian morale if we take it. Additionally, we're trying to take Sevastopol. The Russians are cut off there. They have no more entrenchment. They may reinforce, but it'll all be green troops, so that should be able to be done. And if we can take Sevastopol and Vladivostok, we stand a chance of reducing the Russians' morale to a point where maybe they will surrender, because they've already lost 3 capitals. They've lost Moscow, they've lost Kuybyshev, and they've lost Perm. They don't even have a capital right now, technically, so that would be nice if we could force them out of the war. We're also attempting to take Gorky here to the northeast of Moscow as well, which is another national morale center. If we could take Gorky, Sevastopol, and Vladivostok all in the same turn, the triple hammer blow might just knock Russian morale low enough to cause them to surrender. But we'll see, because they still have over 50 combat units, which are things we need to be mindful of, because it does give them quite a bit of striking power still. Meanwhile, the Western Allies have landed in France. They've advanced as far as Nantes. They've taken the entire Brittany Peninsula. They've taken a good chunk of Normandy. They've been driven back a little bit near Caen. The British units here south of Le Havre were destroyed. But they've also landed additional troops at The Hague in the Netherlands and at Lille here in France. So there's multiple fronts here in the west, and it's a challenge to keep up with all the masses of Allied units. We've barely contained them at the moment, but this is fleeting. This is a temporary sort of reprieve, I think, in that we don't really have much in the way of reserves. So if they do break out at any one point, we're in a bit of trouble. Really, the only place we can lose is Caen and not be completely broken out, because we have a garrison unit in the rear of Caen. But otherwise, this is a very precarious situation. That being said, we've already done our turn for June 30th, so now it's up to us to end the turn and see what the AI does at the start of July of 1944. One other call-out is the Argentinians are continuing to assault the Brazilian capital, Rio de Janeiro. We haven't been able to eliminate the Brazilian forces there yet, but we have continued to kind of weaken them slowly. We'll see if we're able to take that or not, but probably not. I would guess they'll continue to reinforce there. One other thing, in the Middle East, we've taken Iran at Tehran, and we have 2 German armored units here in the south. I may rail one of those elsewhere, and if the Russians continue to resist after next turn. And let's go ahead, and with that being said, let's get started. So Axis activities are hindering the Allies at Crete. Italian human torpedoes are damaging Allied shipping at Alexandria in Egypt. Allied raiders are disrupting the Dutch East Indies Japanese convoys. The Japanese have developed anti-tank weapons level 1. The German incomes drop below 700 MPPs because of the Allied bombing campaign in Western Europe. The Rhine River Valley is taking a heavy punishment from continued Allied air assaults. We do have considerable air units in France, but it's not enough to deal with the masses of Allied units that we have to contend with. Rio de Janeiro is reinforced. Sevastopol is reinforced, although not fully, only to level 5. Soviets south of Stalingrad are continuing to try and advance there and maybe move toward Rostov and see if they can cut us off in the Caucasus. They're a bit a ways from doing that. It's a potential. Meanwhile, Sevastopol is also reinforced, but again, only at 50% strength. So my hope, or not Sevastopol, sorry, Vladivostok. So hopefully I can take both Sevastopol and Vladivostok next turn. We can see more American naval vessels are operating here in the Flores Sea. 2 American battleships, 2 American destroyers, all spotted. An American carrier also spotted as they just destroyed a Japanese destroyer here near the Flores Sea. A second carrier is also spotted, and we just lost a carrier. Fuck. They just knocked one of our carriers out. It was a good thing I consolidated my naval units there. The problem is if the Japanese Navy gets destroyed, we're not going to have time to rebuild it, really. I don't know where their carriers are either. More bombing here into Germany, into the Ruhr, against Essen, and some rail yards around there. Oh boy. Well, I forecast a major naval battle here in the Flores Sea. I don't know if it'll go our way or not. If it wasn't for the fact that the Americans have 2 carriers, I'd be much more confident. We'll also have to see how the weather plays out, because that part of the Pacific seems to continually have massive issues with bad weather, which really limits our carriers' viability. Tactical bombers going after our infantry corps there in France. Might be weak enough for them to take. Meanwhile, another tactical. They're really focusing on that one unit here. They're bombing Jerusalem as well. Heavy air battles over France. Man, they're really focusing on this core here. It's lost 40% of its strength. Soviets have IL-2s at Stalingrad. Meanwhile, 3 artillery strikes against that unit also. They're going to attack here for sure. They'll probably destroy it, but the hope is that it takes them a couple of turns to, or not turns, but it takes them a couple of attacks to do it, so they can't really exploit it. Meanwhile, an Italian tank unit near Ufa is also destroyed. Gorky was reinforced, but not fully either, so maybe we can take Gorky too. Moskva, however you pronounce that. Soviet counterattack on the Manchurian front drives back a garrison unit. British attacks out of The Hague, don't accomplish much. British troops near Le Havre, also counterattack, doesn't accomplish much. If I could reduce this unit here at Le Havre, that would help us in... oh, shit. Shit! 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 That's a breakout, potentially. It's only 1 hex wide at the moment, but that... maybe 2 now. They just drove us back further. God damn, Allied air power is so strong. We need to finish Russia this turn so we can get all of our hordes of troops back. The good news story is the British still are incompetent in North Africa and can't deal with a lone Italian garrison unit there. God damn it. They've broke it. I'm going to call that. That's a breakout, guys. That's a full-blown breakout in southern France. Additional landings here in northern Holland. They just landed at Groningen. Destroyed a garrison unit up there. They've got an open road into Germany. Nothing between us and them. Russia needs to fall fucking now. Sorobaya falls. I don't know what that does to our carrier here. Apparently nothing. American armor is exploiting the breakout. We need to fucking knock Russia out of the war, or we're doomed. Please be over. Just let me go now. Breakout's a little bit early for the Allies, too, compared to history. Only July. Is that a new Soviet unit they just placed there? How do they place units on the front like that? I didn't think you could do that. Partisan activity in China, Manchuria, and supplies hindered on Crete. So that does it for the turn. Calculating supply. Well, we lost the destroyer Suzuki and Hiryu. The carrier Hiryu. Italy gets a garrison unit. Oh, joy. Yeah, that's bad. These troops at Le Havre should be, like, suffering supply penalties or something. I need to pull troops back. Almost, what am I going to pull back? All right, let's focus on what we know we can, or we should be able to do this turn. Let's go ahead and... How did they get half their entrenchments back? Do they just automatically get 4 entrenchments because they're in a fucking fortress? Whatever. Guess it didn't matter. Sevastopol falls, so that'll be good for us. Good. Trying to think what I need to do now. Are these guys able to operate? They can. All right, we're going to pull this Hungarian army, which is a level 2 infantry weapon, back and attempt to plug the gap here in France. I wonder, maybe we should just abandon the south of France here at Bordeaux. That's a really long defensive line, and just fall back to kind of take advantage of the Vichy French government's border. We'll pull this air unit back, and then maybe we can just move troops into Tours, and then kind of form a southern defensive line here. That might not be a bad idea. That allows us to maintain the bulk of the front. So we'll move this Italian unit in Tbilisi. This German armored unit here at Tehran is going to relocate to the Western Front. They'll move to Tours to be opposite of the level 3 American tank. Here's the thing, is I can't move this unit and reinforce it at the same time. That's the other challenge. Reinforce that army. These guys are beat up, so we're going to reinforce them to level 8, max reinforcements. The air units are also going to reinforce because we need them as best we can get them. Can we reduce the Allied position at Le Havre? Doesn't look like it. We can weaken it. We can't reduce it. Hey, we got him. Nice. All right, so we took out the British unit at Le Havre, which does shorten our front a bit. I don't want to race this guy down here, though. It really needs rest. And I want to keep... might not be actually a terrible idea to move it south of Paris as sort of a fallback line. We'll move the garrison unit forward here to guard the coast. They'll probably land something here and maybe interpose themselves, but it's fine for now, I think. These troops at Lily. Got him! Alright, we'll retake Lily. You know what, can we shift these guys north? We can at least move these guys to Antwerp. There. All right. So these 3 units continue to bottle up the British here and at least border the troops at Grunen, and we just need to move 1 unit here between Grunen and Bremen. I think the British will be too weak to directly advance east with these guys because they've only got 2 supplies, so they're not going to be able to drive deep into Germany with these guys. So that's good. So the crisis here, I think, is averted. I also think with the taking of Lille, the British troops here are not going to be too much of a threat. The biggest risk is that the British land here or that the British land here. But for the moment, the crisis in the French theater may have passed. I'm going to reinforce these guys. That almost is kind of inviting the Americans to attack south toward Bordeaux, but at least that would take some of their energy away from a drive east on Paris. So I'm more okay with that. Towns are going to reinforce their heavy tank and their infantry. Okay. There's no partisans in Tehran or in Iran, so I can operate this armored unit away too. Spending a lot of money railing troops all over, but I kind of want to operate them to the Western Front. We'll see. All right, so we've taken Sevastopol. What's the Soviet strength right now? They're at 52 units. Can we take Gorky? Do we have the strength? Oh, come on. Got it. All right, Gorky should be ours. Or is ours. Question is whether they have enough strength to counterattack there. Okay, these guys move back here. Piskov's going to reinforce. I'm going to reinforce this armor here at Riga to get it to full strength, hoping that the Russians retreat or surrender. They have now lost Gorky and Sevastopol this turn. That's 2 national morale objectives in a single turn. Meanwhile, we're going to use our Stukas can't really reach the other front, so here we're going to use our Stukas against this Russian mechanized force here. There we go. All right, so we destroyed a Russian mechanized unit here. I'd like to destroy this headquarter unit if I can. Got it! Yes! All right, so we destroyed a Russian headquarters unit, a Russian mechanized unit. We destroyed a Russian infantry unit at Sevastopol. We destroyed an infantry unit at Gorky. That gets their ground unit strength down to 49. Okay. like to keep the armor rolling south. I am going to pause these guys here to reinforce at Saratov. Then we're going to try and move an encirclement down here towards Stalingrad. Only one? And they took damage too. Fuck. Alright, another Russian unit destroyed down here in the south. Move this mechanized guy here. We're going to move to Salisk. Throw troops over there. These Italian troops, I don't really want them here. It'd be just too inviting of a target. I'd rather a better unit there. I just don't know who I can feasibly pull out there relatively safely. Kind of tempted. Let's do this. Let's move this armored unit west here. So we've got them blocking the way. A good, strong armored unit there. And then Perm will have an infantry unit on the defensive. We're going to reinforce this armored unit here. So Gorky fell. I'm hoping the Soviets don't have strength to counterattack there. We also destroyed some units, a mechanized unit and a headquarter unit near Orenburg, or Uralisk. And then we destroyed an infantry unit south here, near the Stalingrad front. Reinforce these guys. Can these guys upgrade? No. Upgrade these guys. Yeah. Our air units, I think, did their job more or less, and they're going to continue. Oh, we still have one. Can't really bomb anyone of substance. You can bomb over here. So they're going to fly in this direction to get closer to the Stalingrad front. Not sure if they're actually going to be able to attack anything this turn, though. Okay, so these guys are almost full strength. These units are driving south at pretty good strength to 7+ for everybody. These armored units can get into the act next turn. There are 3 Soviet infantry units here that pose a little bit of a threat to our flank, so we'll either attack east or we'll attack south towards Stalingrad if the Soviets are still in the war. I think we've at least plugged the gap in the west for one more turn. And again, the double loss of Gorky and Sevastopol should be a big morale blow to the Soviets. What's their national morale look like? Still hanging steady at 58. We'll see how that is after these 2 cities, though. Okay. Got him! Destroyed the British army unit near the Koma Pass at Impal. I'm not going to advance there yet, though, because I can't. Meanwhile, the American battle fleet in this region. Spotted the American carrier. Or at least one of them. So we're going to move our battleships adjacent to the carrier, and hopefully our battleships can knock out the American carriers. Why are they only doing 2 damage to the carriers? This guy in calm weather. He's in storms. Great. Is he in calm weather? They're all in fucking storms. Why are my battleships only doing 2 damage to fucking carrier? They're not even going to destroy the goddamn carrier. Can they at least make it run? No? They can't do jack shit, can they? It's fucking storming all over here. These heavy cruisers move this way. It's goddamn weather. Alright, so we're reinforcing the Japanese fleet up there. Pull our carriers back in, god damn it, this direction. It'd be great if the weather would shield us from their air attacks for once. It'd be real nice. We'll have to see how that plays out, but this whole theater is kind of fucked at the moment. So we badly damaged their carrier. I would imagine this Essex carrier will pull out at only 2 hit points left to its strength. Plus its air group is reduced by about half. It'll be interesting if the surface fleet would continue to advance on us or not. They're less of a decisive threat. They could definitely destroy a battleship or so, but they're probably not going to knock out our carriers. So really, I think the Americans are going to be down to 1 effective carrier. We'll see what that matters. We've also got 2 reinforcing battleships that'll be coming south next turn. How's the Chinese theater going? Let's see if we can destroy this last Chinese headquarter unit. Okay, that Chinese core is destroyed. Interceptors and escorts. More interceptors, yep. More escorts. Doing some damage to those Chinese interceptors. And we destroyed that Chinese headquarter unit here. So that's a good result for us. Advancing along the southern roads toward the last Chinese capital. Can we get this guy up toward this city? Get him close. I don't really know where I would want to send this guy. So we're kind of advancing into the heartland of China. We've got some units that are going to be approaching Amrichi. It'll be interesting to see if the Chinese replace the air units here with a ground unit. That'll be more effective on the defensive. We should have 2 air units in range, maybe 3 of Umrichi. We're also getting this headquarter unit into Guangzhou to hopefully support from a logistical perspective the drive on the Chinese capital. Our Japanese tanks have learned armored doctrine, which means they can attack twice in a single turn, which could be useful. I mean, they're not level 2 tanks yet or anything, so they're not great tanks, but doing some damage to British Special Forces down there. Let's also reinforce this carrier here. All right, can we take Vladivostok? Nice! Vladivostok has basically no supply there. And Vladivostok falls. So the Soviets have lost 3 national morales this particular turn. Maybe that'll cause them to surrender. Who knows? It also causes them to lose another unit, so they're down to 47 units. Okay. I'm assuming there's a partisan unit there. There is. Let's move this headquarter unit up here. Come to Harbin. All right, so good results against the Russians. Not much against anybody else. These troops here in North Africa still hanging on. There still are some British destroyers here in the Mediterranean. Meanwhile, what's our German destroyer over here doing? Let's switch its status to hunt. And enemy contact. The 9th U.S. Corps is torpedoed off the coast of Norwich. We do need to move one more German unit, I think, to, well, maybe not. We've got this unit here off Bremen, so I think we're okay there. It'll be interesting to see. Hopefully the Soviet Union, with the loss of 3 national morale centers, will have its morale fall so low they'll surrender. Still nothing in Argentina. But we used most of our money, I think. Does Japan have any diplomatic chits? They do. So we can kind of add them to the pressure on Turkey. Bring Turkey up to 35% more likely to swing to the Germans. Upgrade this Romanian army here in Kirsch. We can give it 1 infantry weapon. That'll be useful. We'll get another one next turn, maybe. Then swing them west. So we did bring 2 new armored units in. Some of these guys don't have great morale. But to face off against the Americans here, hopefully we can prevent a full-scale breakout. We did reduce the British units at Le Havre, so the British landings in Normandy have been destroyed. There's Canadian troops here on the Brittany-Normandy area with the American beachhead. And then there's British landings here in Holland, which are problematic. Airborne units there too. And then also near Dunkirk. Okay. Okay, well, that's going to do it, I think, for this turn. We'll see what happens next time around. Let's go ahead and save. But it's an interesting turn, to say the least. American naval strength is at 21 still. We didn't really do any real damage to them. That's a little concerning. They were all under cover of storms. But we'll have to see how the Soviets respond, down to 47 units. I'm really hoping they surrender. Please surrender, Soviet Union. But we'll find out next time. And if they do, then I think the war is in much better shape, at least for a draw. We should be able to shift all our troops west, and hopefully in time to prevent a fall of Paris, and maybe knock out these isolated British beachheads to the north, and see where we go from there. The other concern, though, now is with the Japanese Navy. If the Americans have another turn like they did next turn, the Japanese Navy might be crippled and in no shape to resist against the Americans, and then at that point, without a Navy, I'm going to lose all the Japanese holdings, at least until you get to the mainland of Asia, because I've got no real feasible way to survive American naval supremacy or reinforce any of these islands, which are all basically empty with the exception of the Central Pacific, where I've got a fair number of units. Really wish I could operate some of these air units here in the east to be able to support against the Americans and the Flores Sea, but it's too far away. So yeah, that's the situation right now, guys. Anyway, I hope you're enjoying the series. I think I've already said that, but until next time, guys, this is the Historical Gamer saying thank you for watching, and I'm out.